the 2021 candidate for governor of Virginia. My name is Merle Rutledge Jr. And of course, I'm that badass Republican that everybody's talking about running for governor. And of course, the Rutledge train keeps going and going and going. Now, let me go ahead and get to the point and get this out the way. God is good all the time. Once again, God is great all the time. Now, let me go ahead and cut to the chase. I stand in full support of Chief Green out of the Portsmouth Police Department here in Virginia, which is my neighbor city, and I'm going to say why. When she slapped down those arrest warrants, it made me proud. It said finally, that we have leadership that isn't caring about your race, isn't caring about your title or who you claim you are, and saying nobody is above the law. Now, I know there's some stooges out there that's trying to cause trouble. They mad. They pissed off because they feel that they still above the law. And it's called some of them morons up there called city council members for the city of Portsmouth, Virginia, which was pissed off at the press conference that said exactly, we want Chief Green to be fired for doing her job. It sounds like the problem isn't with the police. The problem is with egos and those who think that they can't be touched. But I guess you figured it out that you can be touched. See, too much is being put on race and thinking race is going to be your excuse. The fact is, what happened to that monument, what happened to that statue, y'all didn't use due process of law. Y'all chose instead of doing it the right way, you chose criminal activity. And one thing I have pledged and said exactly as me being your governor, if craziness like this was to happen, I want you charged. I want you covering the repairs. I want you actually doing community service and cleaning up the mess and making sure I set you as an example for other idiots that decide to act in this way. Now, this is the question, people. What about that day would cause y'all to think it was a good idea to think you was above the law and try to destroy a statue that you could have very well waited until the right permission was granted? No, you didn't want to do that, so of course you decided instead of being a law-abiding citizens teaching your generations how to get things done the right way, you instead chose criminal activity. Don't blame the police chief. Don't blame your politics. Don't blame what you want to get done. A lot of people want to be rich, but sorry, you can't go into a bank and demand the money and point a gun at the teller. That's exactly the type of idiosyncrasies that continue to come out of these Democrats in these liberal cities that continue to think they are above the law. Now, let me get this correct. Don't fall for the political lemonade that the Democrats is playing, because Governor Northam and the rest already saw this as a way to go ahead and chum up votes, which of course seems to be the way of doing business today. Meaning you intimidate, harass, and make law-abiding citizens believe that there is no law and order. Then you show up the fact by saying, I'm going to excuse the behavior. No governor should be giving out a statement which condones or supports criminal behavior. That's the exact sign of poor and weak leadership that Virginia has seen its whole state go into decline of this great commonwealth. See, we don't have the leaders that put a hammer down to any and all that tries to destroy Virginia, tries to destroy America, and go about doing things the wrong way. That's just like somebody taking a test, and instead of studying hard to find the answers, instead they decide to cheat. And that's exactly what happened here. And when you cheat, there is consequences, people. Do not think that this is the measure of what you do to now resolve things, because there will be consequences. What is sad, though, is to know that the governor of Virginia decided to make it all but clear that he will end up excusing this. He will end up pardoning this behavior because it's politically convenient. And it was clear that he was going to use race in making this determination. Now, why would you need to say the first black, like Louise Lucas, is somebody right now that can only be determined by the color of her skin? This is about the character issue and how you behave when given the opportunity to show leadership. As a senator of Virginia, you swear to uphold the laws of the Virginia Constitution as well as the United States Constitution. It doesn't give you the liberty to break it whenever you deem fit. See, that's why we have police, and that's why we have law and order. And I'm so glad that Chief Green decided no longer to play politics, no longer to cater to a Commonwealth attorney that do nothing on arrival and go ahead and go against her oath to appease her bosses that doesn't care anything about her welfare, because they already did it to the last chief. Now, it seems like they have made police into bargaining chips. And you're wondering why morale is down and crime is spiking and people can't get justice. Because it seems like only justice applies to those who are selective in making sure it happens. Instead of what the role is of justice for each and every American here to know that they don't have to be a victim, that they can fight back. And that's exactly what I preach, regardless of your race. A criminal is a criminal, and you heard me say that quote. But yes, they have a right to a trial, but they don't have a right to have the governor of Virginia go ahead and say, hey, it's okay. That statement should not come from the top levels of leadership. The statement should have been clear that we will see how justice is served, and if upon conviction she will be removed from office, as it is a matter for a judge, trial, and jury, not for the governor of Virginia to put his little points in. Now, we can understand where there's evidence clear that the person is innocent, but this ain't the case here. We see all that there's probable cause to know that a crime occurred. Now, was it done properly? Was it done with clear mind and judgment? What was the intent? Those are questions for the justice system, not for those who are of leadership position that should know better. Now, what makes you think that anybody else could do the same thing and not deal with the consequences? We see the same consequences all over Virginia for the same very actions. Nobody said just because you're a senator, just because you're a member of this group, just because you're a public defender, that it gives you immunity to do whatever you please. I'll be damned. And Virginia won't run that way under Merle Rutledge. You will all be treated equal under the color of the law, as well as the law and the rule and order and justice that we all believe in, but also make sure it's well maintained and preserved. It's a cornerstone of what America is all about. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's not fair. But we all been there. We all know that. But the fact is, it doesn't excuse you from doing your part not to become a part of that system. And that's why I encourage the best foot forward for our generations before and those of now that show leadership to continue leadership, not the failure and breakdown of communities because you decided to have a clear lapse of judgment of it. That's exactly why there is a such thing as public corruption. There's a such thing as misuse of your office. There's a such thing as making sure that you abuse your power when you don't have to. But there's a such thing, you will be held accountable. I don't give a damn who you are. Now, on to Mayor Stoney. Now, don't drink the liberal lemonade, because I feel all of this is part of the fix. Just like I said before, it's all coming together. What's really going on here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The most corrupt government in the state that has ever been seen before. And this is exactly what leadership that has personal interest where party over people exists. And that is exactly the type of government that deserves to be overthrown. Because it no longer represents the people. It represents only their political party and those elitists that are up there that's pulling the strings of these stupid puppet masters. And why all of a sudden Mayor Stoney is now being investigated when long time ago he should have been investigated. It seems like exactly people are trying to cover up for their own bullshit. Well, I'm trying to tell the people all across the Commonwealth of Virginia, all of our problems have one direction, and it's called the Richmond, Virginia swamp. And it needs to be cleaned the hell out. And we are going to expect better. We gotta put in our very best to make sure the swamp is drained. You walk a mud puddle dry into that swamp, and then you tell the rest of them liberals, those rhinos, those snakes, those reptiles, the ants, everything that comes with the swamp, and you go ahead and take it right on out. Did Mayor Stoney commit a crime by allowing a campaign donor to get a $1.8 million contract to remove monuments and use and abuse his emergency powers for personal benefit, and also basically looks like what I see, a bribe? See, y'all fail to realize just because somebody looks like you, talks like you, acts like you, doesn't have your best interests. Sometimes it's the people that you don't listen to that's really telling you the truth. Everybody else is just giving you gas in a fuel tank and basically not telling you how far to go before your car breaks down. That's exactly what's going on in Richmond. Look at the city. They're spending their time trying to embolden and promote what has destroyed the city. But that's exactly what corrupt politicians do when they are in trouble. And the last politician that should be talking trash is the one that's doing exactly the same thing, like they forgot exactly their history and their reputation. Mayor Stoney has failed the city of Richmond in more ways than I could ever imagine. The same thing that I discussed about what happened in Portsmouth is nothing but derivative of the trickle down effects that came down from Richmond all the way out across Virginia. A cancer that has spread and has basically went amok and out of control, and you, the Virginia citizens, have to be the victim to it. But I tell you right now, we ain't going to be victims no more. If you open up your eyes, clear your mind, and listen, you are all getting played for their politicians' agenda. They don't care about you because they care about how much money that you can give them. But they manage to answer your questions after you give out a donation. Doesn't that sound like you have to pay for an answer that you thought was part of making sure your representative was able to give you without the token or without the extra gifts, without the extra donation? Because guess what? They campaigned on the fact that they didn't take donations against their values. They campaigned on the fact that they are acting in the best interest of you. They campaigned on the fact that they would listen when you talk. And they campaigned on the fact they would answer your questions and show the leadership that you have come to expect of them. But when you see exactly what they do once they get that opportunity, once they get that vote, and once they get in the office, you see everything that they told you that they was going to do, that they don't have no plans of doing it. They are not picking up the phone when you call. They ain't answering the emails when you send them. They are not even coming to your district because they too busy trying to see how much they can bleed Richmond and bleed lobbyists and bleed special interests, because it has become all about the money, not about leadership. I can't expect for those who know about corruption, that works with corruption, to really apply justice to it. I cannot expect Governor Northam to request the Federal Bureau of Investigations to investigate Mayor Stoney over these accusations. However, we know of Anthony Barefoot in the city of Norfolk who did exactly what they are accusing Mayor Stoney, but he served time in jail. But when are people not going to use what Stoney looks like, what Stoney campaigned on, what Stoney pretends to be, and when are they going to say you need to be treated just like anybody else that has done exactly the same thing, but politically it's inconvenient? Because realistically, that's what's going on. It's a lot of people drinking the liberal lemonade, and they are getting poisoned from the heart and the soul. Because every injustice that we tolerate, it takes a piece of our soul, a piece of our moral fabric, because we know what we preach, and we are going against what we tell others to practice. The fact is, we must hold each and everybody accountable to the highest standard of the law, especially when they get the highest power that we can bestow on anybody from our vote. We are to become more aware and say enough is enough, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what you pretend to be. There's a such thing that you're going to have to become real one of these days. Fakeness has become the political path to victory, and too many people have claimed they are too real. So, if you want to know how I feel about what's going on with the Portsmouth 14, with Mayor Stoney, with All of those who have practiced in corruption and have made the Commonwealth of Virginia their bank. Start looking at yourself and looking at your lives and seeing what you're going through. You shouldn't have to be broke looking at those who are breaking you and to stay silent. Because it's a time where you have to speak up. There's a time where you have to say, I'm going to be real and I'm going to fight for my God, my country, and my family and set the example of what I come to expect and what my family has come to expect by being American citizens and Virginia citizens. That we will hold ourselves to the same standards that we hold everybody else to. We won't excuse people that do wrong and try to go ahead and placate to wrong. Because we've been doing enough. It ain't just with the rioters and the protesters. A lot of us are doing riots and protests and destroying Virginia because we are electing people to keep on doing the job. They may have not broken a window, but they have allowed you to lose your home. They have allowed you to lose your job. They have allowed you to be in fear. Enough is enough, people. It's time for new leadership and a change of the guard. But if you want to continue going down this road, you can't appease it. And it's going to only get worse. Or we can start saying that we no longer tolerate or want or even have any further support for anything in Richmond and what it stands for. As me being your next newly elected governor of Virginia, if you allow me to, we will put an end to these crooked donations and bribes and these people lining their pockets from these groups. Because they had an opportunity to do it before, but they were so caught up with money, they let the legislation die. The only thing they tried to do was bring it down a notch instead of eliminating it. I'd rather our leaders be leaders and not influenced by money or special interests, but doing the right thing for Virginia and for American citizens. The problem has been that they have focused not on applying and making sure laws work for us. They have been spending their time just having wine and cheese festivals on the taxpayers' back. You, me, and everybody else is paying for this. It's time for us to ask for a refund. And that means kicking those bastards out and putting politicians that love their country, patriots through their heart and soul, those who understand what you are going through and is there to fix the problem because they also have been faced with the same struggle. That's exactly what Virginia needs. That's what exactly Virginia can have hope and believe in. My name is Merle Rutledge, and I'm running for 2021 Governor of Virginia, the first declared. Don't have anybody else think or believe that they was the first declared. They was the first declared to get your money. They wasn't the first declared to really lead Virginia. Thank you for your time, and God bless America.